Selling a home in a buyer's market is certainly tougher, but smart agents are still beating expectations and delivering some outstanding results. Joining us now to tell us how it's done is Bronwyn Lipscomb, sales agent with Di Jones, and with her is the ultra-talented photographer. Ultra-talented. He insists that we call him that. Aaron Perkins of the Market Collective.
How are you both?
Hello,
Great to see you. Yeah, we have to call him that because he brings such amazing images onto the show.
We can't just say talented either. He insists on the ultra part.
Oh, yes, that's in the contract.
Bronwyn, how tough is the market at the moment for your clients?
Well, look, it's certainly a significantly softer market than what we had 18 months ago. The days on market have extended out, and that's because we've got clearance rates now, as everyone's seeing, of 50%, sometimes in the 40s, versus the mid-80s that we had 2 years ago. So now it is very common for a property to pass in at auction. Now, prices have fallen, and we're now back at 2016 levels. What that means is that if we have an owner who bought 2 to 3 years ago and they now decide to sell, you know, either through choice or need, they're actually looking down the barrel of taking a loss.
And is that a tough conversation that you have to have with vendors right from the outset, and how receptive are they to that information?
Yeah, so I'm very direct, I'm very upfront. You know, I would rather have a conversation with an owner from the beginning that makes sure we're on the same page. And I have, you know, turned away business if I think the owner isn't ready to meet the market on price.
I presume, Bronwyn, even in that upper market at the moment, if they are perhaps buying and selling and buying in the same market, then that conversation is perhaps easier if you're explaining, well, look, you might be doing it marginally here, but it will flow onto that next property. So are you finding that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about changeover. It's actually a really good market to upgrade, because that property that was 3 million is probably now around 2.6, 2.7. So the gap between where you're selling at, say, 2 million is now much closer. And so properties that were previously out of reach in terms of that upgrade are now available.
Now, you're known as a fix-it agent.
It's an amazing title, isn't it?
Not in a Christopher Pine sort of way either. What does it mean in the context of what you do on your particular patch of the Upper North Shore of Sydney?
Yeah, look, I absolutely love being the fix-it agent. For me, I love what I do, and I love providing a solution and helping owners who are stuck become unstuck. You know, so where they have had a failed campaign in the past, really understanding what it is they want to achieve and providing a solution that meets their family's aspirations. And I think in this market, there is a great variance of service and intellect amongst the agents in our sector, and you will see attrition. You will see agents leaving who, in the boom, were just order takers and now can't really cut it. And I think if you bring that extra level of intelligence and care, then it's an opportunity to really help people out.
This fix-it deal, I'm interested because it's a very big title, but as you're starting to say, it's really over a scope of things. You're sort of managing the expectations of the vendor. You're also, I presume, analysing the property itself. How do you deal with it when you're taking on a property that has been withdrawn from market from a vendor, and now you're picking up something that I could say, for want of a better phrase almost, it's been seen as bad fruit? What's wrong with it? How do you deal with that?
Look, the very first thing I do is actually assess the situation. I don't walk into someone's living room and start telling them what to do. You know, I ask lots and lots of questions. I want to know what's gone on during the prior campaign. You know, did their last agent give them detailed buyer feedback? You know, what have the buyers been saying about the property? Is there anything we need to change about the property itself to deal with those objections? Did they receive any offers? If they did, what was the best offer that they received? How do they feel about that best offer now? You know, sometimes they say, well, I kind of wish I'd taken it because the property's worth less now. We obviously delve into marketing, and I ask them how they feel their property was presented. Do they think that the advertising reached the right audience? And obviously it's about understanding their end goal. You know, what is it that they want to achieve, and is there a timeline that we have to work to?
Now, let's get into some properties, and while we do that, let's talk about the significance of the photography here, because that's where, Aaron, you really get the chance to shine. 8 Yalleroy Avenue in West Kimble. Tell us the story behind this sale and also the marketing of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favourites. We sold it in December. I was actually the third agent.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and so I was called by the vendor because she'd seen my sales nearby. And I hope she wouldn't mind me saying it, but she was sick of the whole thing.
Of course,
and,
I can
and
imagine.
she really wanted to have someone who could get the job done. So we went in there and completely overhauled the marketing, and there was a striking difference between the work that Aaron did and what was done previously. That's why I work with him.
And what did you do differently, Aaron? Did you look at the previous marketing materials and could you see where they'd gone wrong?
Generally, basically, yeah, we try to, it's the same sort of thing. We look at the previous angles and maximise the space, and maybe sometimes the photographer previously hadn't done the best of work, and freshen it up, freshen the pictures up so people who have seen the previous campaign can go, oh, look, and be reinvested and reinterested.
See, a picture like that tells you nothing about the house, but it tells you how you might feel living in that
that's
house.
right.
It's completely
Yeah, that's right.
emotive.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting point that you said, Aaron, because as we know, we had you on the show, and I've worked with you personally with client, but you talk about the angles that you take and the way that the rooms are viewed, and we judge so much online presence to come and view the property, sometimes to see it. It's such an integral thing. So for you analysing previous photos, it's funny to say, look, they got this wrong, or I could do this better, or it's a different angle. The room hasn't changed size.
Exactly. I think I've been doing it a while, so I tend to get know the correct angles, the perfect angles, but you need to grab somebody's attention almost instantly, because as they say, we're flicking through the properties and they need to be interested straight away in that shot.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when a buyer's looking on the internet, the very first thing they're looking at is the photos and the floor plan. And the other thing we've been doing a lot of is video. And it's just getting that deeper engagement, which is also really important for posting on social media.
And the drone work too, obviously makes it takes the next level as well.
We thought Aaron's incredibly tall, but we know he has a
Let's have a look at Sherbrooke Road in Asquith now.
Yes.
Was this one that had failed to sell for a while and you took it on?
Yes, that's right. So there was a previous agent on
I love that smile of Glenn. Tell us the story. It's great.
So Asquith is a suburb just next to Hornsby. Once you go past Hornsby, those suburbs have suffered even more than the core suburbs from Hornsby down to Chatswood, so it's a very difficult market to sell in. On this one, the owner actually called me once he saw the marketing materials and said he was absolutely blown away by the photography and how we presented
As long as you
it.
don't make it look too good to say, actually, we're not going to sell anymore. We're going to stay.
Is it hard to convince people though off the bat that, like, especially if they've listed it with a few other agents first and they've already shelled out for marketing campaigns?
Yes.
How hard is it to convince them to stump up even more cash? And when they're already a bit tarnished from thinking, well, maybe it's just not going to sell.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think it is actually a good test of how much that owner wants to sell. I mean, I can't change what they've spent previously. That was past. All I can do is give my recommendation of what I think we need to do to get the job done. And at the end of the day, we're selling in a market that ranges from just under $1 million up to $6 million. So the cost of the marketing is relatively inexpensive compared to the final result.
And what was the final result there? How much?
So that one we had a guide of $895,000 and we sold it 2 days prior to auction for $900,000.
Great.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Work.
nice.
Yeah.
Just edged over. That's a really
it.
nice way to think.
Let's head to Gordon now, Burgoyne Street, and you can ask your next
That's fine.
Jump in.
Yeah, no, we're never going to get an argument when we get to look at pictures. I'm wondering, when you look with the previous images, and here we are seeing properties that are beautifully styled. The styling of the property is so important. So, I mean, Aaron can get great shots if the things are right, and he can move things to the left and right, but if the styling is not right for the home in the first place, that makes his job harder. How do you deal with that?
So this one was an amazing campaign and it actually bucked the trend of the market. So we sold this at auction for 30% above reserve.
We love that.
Auction, everybody. Auction. And Aaron, do you ever just walk in and go, I can't work with this?
Yeah. It's a typical tough day.
But the reason was that these vendors actually completely trusted me. They just handed over control. Often a vendor will have a little bit of debate about the strategy. They said, Bronwyn, you're the expert. We want you to tell us what to do. And so right from the very beginning, in terms of doing repairs to the property so it came up well in the building and pest, doing the premier styling that you see there, fresh paint, carpet, but also getting the price guide right and having a reserve that matched the guide.
And how important is that trust relationship? Because real estate agents are ranked with journalists like me and politicians in terms of how trustworthy they're seen in all those sort of surveys. So how do you kind of establish that trust from the outset?
I think my results speak for themselves. So I can say, well, look, here's my portfolio, here's what I've achieved, and this is how I did it. So straight away they can see that my advice works. But also I think by demonstrating that I do actually care about the outcome. I'm not just there for the deal. I like to help people make a move and do what they need to do with their property.
And, you know, the quality of this relationship that you're having with these clients, it comes back in return business. I mean, there are people who buy and sell within suburbs over time, and then the referral rate. So it's a really important thing for this market at the moment. Instead of just hiding in a shell, really watching how you perform and what you present.
Yeah, I actually had a call this week from someone who's been on the market for 3 months and not sold, and she was recommended to me by someone who bought from me 2 years ago.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you can't afford to muddy the waters when you work quite specifically in one area, can you? Now let's have a look at Kangaloon Road in Robertson, Aaron. This is a campaign you've worked on recently. What's the backstory here?
This is a new one, and they had some previous images that weren't quite enough, so they've called me in to take a few more to entice some new buyers to the market.
Do you have a look at them and think, well, how could you stuff that? How could you take a bad picture
in the
there?
back there? That's the chicken run in the back, which is about as big as my house. It's a stunning property.
Your catchphrase, the grass is always greener.
Exactly. Oh, yes. I mean, I could walk around. I could spend a day shooting there. It's just stunning.
But could you take a bad photo?
That's right.
On your iPhone?
Yeah, but look, I mean, I'm looking at these images now, and from a professional point of view, these are. I could put printing on the top of that, and that could be a cover.
Yeah.
So this is really magazine quality. Without patronising you, I mean, we know you do a great job, but there's a reason why you're following. Explain for people watching, you know, you look for natural lines that are happening in the image to get the angle.
Correct. It needs to be graphic. It needs to grab you. It needs to put you in the spot. It needs to be a punchy image in order to really go. That one there is perfectly square. You've got the fireplace. You've got the beautiful light coming in through the window in the back. Here you've got the beautiful old bar, and you've out of focus chairs. So you put yourself in those seats.
Mad Men or something.
You know, it's this all the symmetry and
storage. So I also like when we've spoken to you, and also for you, Bronwyn, too, when these images, they're selling a pretty story, right? But they're actually saying more. This image is about a great room and well styled, but it's also, my eye is noticing space and bench top and storage and all of these key words. So do you two discuss these points when you're getting a brief? How does that work?
When we get to a property, Bron will have a sort of an idea of what needs to be done, and she'll tell me how many shots we need, and we'll have a look around and discuss, you know, look at the back of the camera at some angles. You know, I might shoot 5 angles of the kitchen, and then we'll work out which ones we like. And
I'm a control freak.
Which we like.
Look, not all agents attend the photo shoots because they think, oh, it's just a menial part of the process, but to me it's so vital.
It is.
And so I'm there every single time and overseeing it all to make sure
Two heads are better
all
than
the way
one.
I want it.
Yeah, so we get it right, and because Bronwyn looks from a real estate and a sales perspective, I sometimes just look at it from a pretty perspective, and we kind of meet in the middle as well to grab people. So it's good. So we're a good team.
So this is encouraging, isn't it, for people who are out there feeling this is a down market. I'd like to sell at the moment, but I don't know how to make the most of it. But you can still get some great results in this kind of market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way to describe the market is that it's patchy. So we do see some extraordinary results like Burgoyne Street in Gordon. Now that's not the norm, but the good news story is you can get sold if you approach it in the right way.
But if you don't have good marketing, you're probably going to struggle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we all want to be presented at our best, and so do the properties. Great to have you on. It's very exciting. We're going to be running that with the caption 30% over at auction. I think we're going to ride on that all year. But it's also a great combination of providing the right services to your clients. So congratulations, well done. Great to have you back on the show.
Always
too, Aaron, and always beautiful to look at your amazing imagery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.